So most of the today's lesson is going to be on the endocrine system. But the first little teeny part, so at the very top of your notes, you'll see it where it says standard. You're going to write this standard down. This is going to be the shortest standard you've ever seen. And it's just knowing the difference between the endocrine system and the exocrine system. So we'll start off with the exocrine system. It's very small. It's everything exo. It's everything that exits the body. Endo is what goes on inside the body. But we'll start with the exocrine system first. So your exocrine system are glands. So all that we're talking about now are glands. All the glands and what they do for your body. Exocrine glands that secrete their products, excluding hormones or other chemical messengers, because this is endocrine, into ducts or tubes, which lead directly into the external environment. So the exocrine system, that's the biggest thing, is this is a gland that's going to send the product outside of the body. Usually what it's secreting are mucus and proteins. Some examples would be sweat glands, salivary glands, mammary glands, that's what's producing your milk for your babies, stomach, liver, and pancreas. So those are just, exocrine is the biggest thing. It's going to be a little tube and it's going to go outside the body. And these, I don't go specifically into each of these glands because it's part of other curriculum like sweat glands, sudoriferous glands, sebaceous glands. We learned that already in Unit 1. So now we're just knowing that, oh, that's an exocrine gland. So literally that was it about the exocrine. Now we're going to talk about the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a very amazing system. It controls a lot of things about you that you don't even understand. You're going to notice that for like reproductive system, your digestive system, fight or flight, norepinephrine and epinephrine, you can't get those things without the endocrine system. If you feel really excited, if you're more relaxed, all those things are dictated by your hormones. And your hormones, and a lot of you right now have probably an upset system because you're going through, you're really in the peak of puberty. So your pituitary gland is sort of out of control and trying to produce these glands. So this is a really important system, and understanding your endocrine system is so important, especially for females, because our cycles are completely controlled by hormones. You have different hormones at different times of the month. What you eat can dictate that. If you have a very painful cycle, if you suffer from endometriosis or polycystic ovarian syndrome, you can help your body by maybe being more healthy and things like that. So I really love the system because it's so complex and so wonderful. Okay, so all right, so let's get started. All right, so what is the endocrine system? Let me get this out of the way here. Okay, so it's made up of glands and they produce and secrete hormones internally. There are no ducts. Like with external, there was ducts. There's no ducts here. It regulates your growth, metabolism, sexual development. So you guys are not at the stage where you're trying to reproduce, but whenever you guys are at that stage, your endocrine system is very important. It's what produces your sperm. It's what produces the egg every month. So response to stress and injury. So if you, how you respond to stress. So if you respond to stress, like if a stressful situation happens and you get really nervous, it could be due to an overactive endocrine system. Okay, and those things that you can do to help with that. Internal balance of body systems. So everything is controlled by your endocrine system. It's such an important system. Okay, so this is just to kind of show you. So the gland, so this will be a gland, right? The gland will secrete straight into the bloodstream and it'll go through the bloodstream. This will be a hormone. The hormone will go through your bloodstream and then come out, and then it will attach to the receptors of your target cell and do whatever it's supposed to accomplish. You have steroid and non-steroid hormones. You don't really know much about this. I don't even know if it's on your guided notes, but you do have two different types of hormone. You have a steroid hormone and you have a non-steroid hormone, and really the difference is on how it attaches to the receptor, but you don't have to worry about that. So this is a review. So this is your homeostasis negative feedback system, and your endocrine system runs on this. So if something is low, you're going to learn in a minute, the pituitary gland, which is a mastery gland, will secrete more of something and therefore it will get back up again. So it's always trying to make sure that your levels are balanced. If your levels are not balanced, that's when you're going to have issues with reproductive system, with the digestive system, with things like that. What's supposed to happen is when a hormone level rises, let's say too much estrogen. So if you have too much estrogen, then your pituitary gland will shut off, right? So that way that it will go back down. Unfortunately, we have a lot of stuff in our food. A lot of things are in our food. A lot of chemicals are in our food. Therefore, it actually goes to our bloodstream and attaches to the receptor and tricks the organ into thinking that it's, like, for instance, estrogen. So your body just gets out of whack, but that's just one example. Well, right now you should be answering a question. Okay, so now we're going to look at the structures. We're going to go through each individual structure. The pituitary gland is the gland, guys. That is the mastery gland. That's what controls everything. Okay, and there we are. Your pituitary gland is a very small gland here. We went into the pituitary gland when we were learning about the brain and the structures of the brain. So your hormones, your hormone, and I really like this picture here, but the hormone, the pituitary is often called the master gland. If you just remember that, your pituitary is your master gland. It controls all the other glands. That will send a signal, it will send a hormone. They have all specific hormones. We're going to learn about a couple, but they have all these different hormones. It sends it out into the bloodstream and it will control those glands. So it is like the master center. Its actions are actually controlled by the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus will send a signal. So this is a great picture to show that. This is the part of the brain the hypothalamus sends a signal to. So this is a neurotransmitter will come here to the pituitary gland, and now it's all hormonal. So pituitary, because it's a gland. So now this is going to secrete different hormones. It will go into the bloodstream, and then it will go to the thyroid gland. It will go to the adrenal gland. It will go to the gonads, testes, depending on what needs to be done. So again, it controls every hormone. It controls every gland. But I'm just going to go over and review the main hormones that are secreted. So the first one is called prolactin, PRL. That's what stimulates milk production from a woman's breast after childbirth. And it can also affect sex hormone levels from the ovaries. So they say after you have a baby that you kind of have a little window, and this is a myth a little bit because I've known women who have gotten pregnant, but that when you're breastfeeding, it's like you can't, if your prolactin is so high, like your eggs are kind of shut off, like you're not producing any eggs. But again, that can be, that it's all individual. But that's what it means by it can affect your sex hormone levels. When this is high, your ovaries don't function as they would when it wasn't high. PRL for short. The growth hormone, your GH, so this stimulates growth in childhood and is important for maintaining a healthy body composition. In adults, it's also important in maintaining, so for females, we quit growing, our GH would stop about 14, 15. For males, it's much longer, 20, anywhere from 20 to 24 is usually about the average. But after you're an adult, then you're maintaining muscle mass, bone mass, and it can also affect your fat distribution in the body. So that's your GH. GH is your growth hormone, and it comes from the pituitary gland. Problems with this with the pituitary gland, so a genetic mutation can result in dwarfism. So just some pictures of showing different types of dwarfism. You probably didn't even notice her over here in comparison to a normal size. So this would be normal GH secretion. This would be like the adaptation of it. I actually love this show, Little People, Big World. So anyways, there's two little people, LPs, they like to be called, and they had 4 children. Out of those 4 children, 3 were normal size and 1 was also a little person. These are actually twins, so you can just see it's completely genetic, but the variation of the genetics is quite interesting. He actually just had a little person baby himself, and he had normal size. It can go the other way as well, so gigantism, so this would be an overproduction of the GH hormone. Again, it's genetic as well. Okay, so the next one is called oxytocin. It causes milk letdown, and that will actually start the contractions during child labor. We talked a little about oxytocin when we were doing the positive feedback mechanism. So this is the one instance where you have positive, right? Once contractions occur, more oxytocin will be secreted. ADH. So ADH is very, very important, and we'll talk more about this when we learn about when we talk about our kidneys. So ADH, also called vasopressin, but just ADH, antidiuretic hormone, is stored in the back of the pituitary gland and regulates your water balance. If this hormone is not secreted properly, this can lead to problems in sodium and water balance. So urinating constantly or not urinating enough. That would be caused by the pituitary gland, which is ADH. Okay, so before we move on, we're going to kind of bounce a little bit. We're going to talk about the thyroid gland, but I want to just skip forward to where it says TSH, and I'll go back so you guys can write down the last. But THH, I just want to write next to this that this is actually produced. This is produced by the pituitary gland, and it does say that here, but sometimes students get confused because it is underneath the thyroid. So pituitary gland, the TSH, this is where when I was talking about, this is probably one of the biggest issues some people can have, is that they're not producing enough TSH and therefore their thyroid is completely off. That would cause issues in your metabolism, energy, like being very sluggish, growth, development in your nervous system, feeling very nervous or being or very tired. Vice versa. Okay, so I just wanted to jump a little ahead of that. So let's go backwards. So your thyroid gland controls your metabolism, which is your body's ability to break down food and store its energy. So when someone has an overactive thyroid, then that would be someone who would have an overactive metabolism. If it wasn't, then it'd be like it would be like being overweight because you have an under. So the TSH, I talked about that. That's a big thing, guys. It's produced by the pituitary gland to control the thyroid. The thyroid secretes T4 and T3, thyroxine and triiodothyronine. Both increase the rate at which cells release energy from carbohydrates. Calcitonin, which regulates your blood concentration of calcium. Problems with the thyroid. So you got hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So it's partly made of iodine. Iodine is very essential in the formation of thyroxine. If a person does not eat enough iodine, they will not make that hormone. What will happen is they will produce something called goiter and get this really sized follicle in their throat. So you want to make sure that you have enough iodine in your diet. If not, maybe just get like in your vitamins. Iodine is only found in seafood. So if salt wasn't iodized, a lot of people wouldn't get enough iodine, and there'd be a lot of goiters. So this is an example of what it would look like. This is extreme. Before and after. This is more of what you're going to see. Like when they have that double chin, that's usually an example of goiter. Cretinism is hypothyroidism in infants. So you can kind of see where the swelling is. Hyperthyroidism is called Graves' disease. That's very common. It's where their eyes are protruding. This would be someone who's hyperactive. That would have the bulging eyes is a really great, is the prime example of it. Okay, the parathyroid is on your thyroid. It's 4 little glands on the back, and this is what takes your calcium from your bones to make it available to the blood, if that's needed. Your adrenal glands. So adrenal glands is what we're talking about with fight or flight. They're all located on your kidneys. They look like a little triangle. The adrenal cortex is the outer, and the inner is the adrenal medulla. Produces adrenaline. It also produces epinephrine and norepinephrine. It increases your heart rate, breathing rate, elevated blood pressure for fight or flight. They do have something called an EpiPen. If you have some sort of allergic reaction to something, you'll use the EpiPen for that. Your pancreas. Your pancreas is a large gland behind your stomach that helps the body to maintain healthy blood sugar and glucose levels. You have glucogen versus insulin, so you need to know the difference between this. Glucogen will stimulate the liver to break down glycogen and raises blood sugar concentration. Insulin will decrease the blood sugar levels, affect the uptake of glucose molecules. So you don't eat in the morning and your blood glucose levels are low, glucogen will raise it. Insulin will decrease it. This is probably mostly what's being used a lot in our society, because in America we eat a lot of sugar, so the insulin would actually decrease your blood sugar concentration. Diabetes, there's different types. What diabetes is you get insulin deficient because of, there's two different reasons. It could be genetic or it could be because of your diet, but blood sugar rises and excess is excreted into the urine. Type 1 is something that you're born with. So it's nothing that you did, that anyone did. It was something that was genetic. They think that it could have been caused by an inherited immune disorder, so something having to do with the immunity. And it essentially, like, your immune system is destroying your pancreatic cells, but that's not even 100%. They're still doing a lot of data to figure it out. It's an unfortunate disease, but the positive thing is that we live in a society, in a medical field that has things to help with that, right? Like you have your a lot of medical interventions. So type 2 is when you basically become insulin resistant because of what you're eating. So because you are consuming so much sugar, your body almost becomes immune to or not to the sugar, but to insulin, because so much insulin is being released at all times. So insulin is being released and the receptors are like, whoa, 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 we've had too much of it. You can reverse it by changing your diet and exercising. So that's the good news about it. The bad news is sugar is in everything. So, and another thing, remember, everything's being controlled by the pituitary. So if your pancreas is needing is doing all the work, right? So let's say you're eating a lot of sugar, a lot of sugar, a lot of sugar. Your pituitary gland is spending all of its time sending hormones to your pancreas, right? And what's happening to all your other glands? They're going by the wayside. So by controlling your diet, you also control a lot of other things, because your body's not worried about, sending so much to your pancreas, sending so much to your liver, and they're not getting all the work. Insulin is what you would use to lower blood sugar levels. Hypoglycemia will occur if levels become too low, and then you would inject yourself with glucose or go eat a cupcake. Your pineal gland is located between your cerebral hemispheres. It secretes melatonin, important for maintaining circadian rhythms, light and dark activity. You want to make sure things are dark. With cell phones and TVs, some people are unfortunately suffering from insomnia. They can't get to sleep because they have this light in their face and they turn it off. They're like, what's going on? Because you're trying to switch on the circadian rhythms in your brain, and it has to be dark for that, right? Your brain is triggered when it's dark. Go to sleep. When it's light, be awake. The thymus, large in young children, but they gradually shrink. It has to do, they secrete thymosins, important for immune function. So a child needs that because they don't have an active immunity yet. They haven't acquired their immunity. We as adults have. We've had a lot of bacteria, a lot of antibacteria, things like that. So we're good to go. Reproductive glands are located in the testes for males and the ovaries for females. The hormones would be testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen. So these three, this system, guys, this gland is the first one to go. So if your diet isn't right or anything else, the pituitary gland is in a stop your reproduction. You don't need to reproduce, right? You don't need to reproduce. We don't need to worry about that because we've got other things to worry about. So sometimes if you see issues with this, by going backwards and doing something and changing the way you eat could potentially help it. Both men and women have testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen. Just they have more testosterone than females do. Females at different times of the month, you would have more progesterone versus estrogen. We don't need to go into steroids, and I think that's it. Okay, all right.